Workers are in a state of panic and confusion over Elon Musk stating on X that federal workers will be required to detail what they have accomplished in a week, and failure to respond will result in termination. But newly sworn-in FBI Director Kash Patel told his FBI agents to ignore these directions and the staff at FBI, stressing a pause to such responses in order to allow the FBI to handle its own procedures. This also comes on the heels of the White House legally clarifying that Musk does not have any authority to make government decisions. He is an advisor. But now, downstream, lawmakers seem to be catching some heat, one of them just this past weekend at a town hall where protesters attacked.
I remember having the same discussion with Republicans when Biden was elected. The funny thing is, you're sitting here and a lot of you would probably say those January 6s who are yelling just as loud as you, who are upset just like you, and not listening.
Hey, let's restore some order. Let's restore some order. Hey, let's restore some order.
That was Congressman and Dr. Rich McCormick of Georgia's 7th Congressional District. He joins us now. Congressman, wow, that looked like man in the arena if there ever was a moment like that.
That's a great comparison, actually. I like that. Teddy Roosevelt was my favorite president.
Well, look at the reaction you got from that room. Were you surprised that they were reacting like that? What was the makeup of the audience there?
I think it was about 80% Democrat, just based on the cheers to jeers, what they're complaining about. They don't like Donald Trump. They didn't like Doge. They don't like Elon Musk. They don't want the accountability, want to raise. Basically, all taxes should be raised. Nothing should be cut. We're not going to raise our taxes to make up for the deficit that we have. We have a 30% deficit. You could take all the billionaires' money in the world and you wouldn't make up for the deficit we have right now, which is $2 trillion. And that's per year, by the way. If you took away their money this year, you're not going to have anything last year. And most people don't realize that billionaires are very good at hiding their money. And way more billionaires give way more money to the Democrats than to the Republicans. People should be asking themselves, why is that? You have a lot of loopholes out there. You're not going to tax your way out of this. And this is the conversation we needed to have. I'm okay with people yelling. I'm okay with people being angry. And I want to clarify the things that they're upset about. One person brought up the SAVE Act. And they said, 69 million women are not going to be able to vote because of this act. That's simply not true. Let's have that conversation. Let's clarify points. And let's move on so we can actually get to solving some problems.
So I remember having a conversation recently with someone who raised the curious trend we're watching. At one point, cutting wasteful spending was a bipartisan issue. It very clearly is not anymore. And as you say, as we saw in that video, all those jeers were of people who were opposed to cutting government spending and cutting government waste. What is the psychology behind that now? And do the Democrats ever get to a point where they support trimming government waste?
It sure doesn't seem low, but it used to be in the past. We actually got into this problem because of bipartisanship, wanting to always increase spending. I mean, this bend started back in 2004 when Bush was president. It's been a problem for both parties, and we haven't done anything to right the ship. And in fact, COVID really accelerated that process. We should, I think, at pre-COVID spending, we're about $2 trillion short of where we are right now. And we can't even agree to cut $300 billion from our current budget. And that's a real problem. So when we have these discussions, and I have talked to Democrats about this, whether it be on Social Security, Medicare, which are two things that I think we can bipartisanly actually face down together, and then a lot of other things which we can't because we just vehemently disagree that I think that government's way too big. There's way too much waste. And that's what the Doge is pointing out in spades. And we can fix that by executive privilege because we actually are talking about a bureaucracy, about being too big and too inefficient. And we don't need Congress for that, but we need to address some very big spending items as a Congress and do our part to actually trim that fat that's been burdening us down and will actually ruin the budget for future generations.
Well, Georgia, your state has turned out, voted for Trump decisively, and the voices in that town hall were clearly not, I don't imagine, Trump voters. Were they organic Georgians? Do you think that there was a concerted effort behind their turnout, or is there any indication that they were just upset Democrats? What's your take on it initially?
There was a concerted effort. From what I understand, is there were a lot of emails flying around. They were recruiting heavily to get there early. I mean, we were standing room only about an hour and a half prior to the event. We had to turn away over 200 people, and that's just the people who came to the door. I'm not even talking about the cars who couldn't find parking 3 blocks away. The TV cameras, to have 4 TV cameras at a town hall, that is unusual to say the least. But I'm willing to have that conversation, quite frankly. When people get upset that we're cutting 10% of an employee, which is the federal government, when we're talking about the CDC, for example, when you're talking about cutting 1,300 jobs, when you have 13,000 people at an organization like that, I want to see, what are they doing? What is that one person we're cutting doing? Now, some of them may be replacing people who are retiring, and that's fine. But you cannot say that you can justify expanding your agency in a time where we need to contract, where we have to be responsible, we have to make some hard decisions, and nobody's willing to have that discussion, at least not at that town hall, which is unfortunate. Now, we did have some good conversation. I thought we had some good information passed, but just yelling at a meeting isn't going to solve anything.
Well, you've had your tiffs with Elon Musk in past, not tiffs. I mean, you've basically drawn the line saying, he doesn't influence your vote, but at the same time, you've been very supportive of his efforts. Where do you think Doge is going to, what is going to be their biggest win in the next couple weeks?
Well, they have 2 wins. First of all, they get to advise the president on, look, here's the waste, fraud, and abuse. This is now up to the president to determine what he's going to do. He's the one that makes the decision. He's the elected official. Mm-hmm. He's the one that controls the bureaucrat. They also have a great sway on public opinion. When you can show the American people that you certainly don't want your money pulled out of your pocket by a government who says, you will give me money, and then I'm going to spend it on some things that are pretty ridiculous, that everybody would agree we don't want money spent on. And that's going to really, I think that's going to have a long-term effect of showing that we want to be responsible. We don't want to take your money and spend it on things that based on Democrats and Republicans would agree we don't want to spend money on, and we can move forward. And I think that's a really important tool, too, is to affect the truth of where this money has been spent.
Well, that's what's so curious about the opposition to Doge in particular. Of all things, you would think that most Democrat strategists would figure out a message that doesn't attack the principle of what Doge is doing. Maybe attack the way they're doing it, but from what I'm gathering, Congressman, and what I saw in that town hall, they're just attacking the spirit of it altogether.
Yeah, they want to confound the issue. They want to make this about something that's not. They want to say Elon Musk was not elected. Yeah, I get it. The Doge wasn't elected. Yeah, I get it. But neither was any bureaucrat who's been harassing you for the last couple decades, making your life miserable, whether they go after you with the IRS, let me say, should I say, outside the normal purview, when it's weaponized against Americans, when the ATF is weaponized against Americans, when you're changing things and using the government against people, that's a wrong thing. Now, they don't want to focus on the fact that no bureaucrat has ever been elected, no appointee has ever been elected. They want to focus on that rather than actually getting the job done, taking care of the America's people's will, making sure that we have accountability and making sure that we don't bankrupt this great nation and put us in a situation where we can't do the great things that we've always done.
Congressman, you're also on a series of very interesting committees, and we could go off on a topic on any one of those committees you're on, but one of them is the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I wanted your quick thoughts on how you think the House can potentially help in any discussions that may be going on in Ukraine or about Ukraine. Do you have any additional intel that will help in the peace process, or is this just a wait and watch the negotiators do their thing?
Well, I'd say this. First of all, take a step back for President Trump. There's certain things I disagree with President Trump on Ukraine, and that's okay because he's proven himself to be quite brilliant on foreign policy, way better than I ever thought he would because he didn't have a lot of experience before he was president. But look at what he did with the Abraham Accords.
Well, like, what do you disagree with him on right now?
Well, so I'm a big believer that Ukraine needs to be supported as a top 5 resource nation, that Zelensky doesn't need to have an election right now with 4 million of his people displaced outside of his country, with a significant portion of the country already taken and occupied by Russia. You can't have a legitimate election when you're missing a significant portion of your electorate. That's just something we disagree on. Now, it's okay to disagree because we're not a cult. We don't have to agree on everything. If you go to a church, you're probably not going to agree with everything your minister says, or you might be a cult. We're not a cult. But I think it's okay. But he's proven himself to be very brilliant at getting negotiations done and getting the end result that we all want. Maybe it's not the same way we would do it, but it's extremely effective. And I'm looking forward to having that continued dialogue with him and foreign nations as we try to find real solutions moving forward.
Congressman McCormick, always interesting to hear your take, and keep up the arena fighting. We love to see it, and hopefully you can red pill a few more people into the fighting of government waste and size.
Thank you very much. I hope we can find some real solutions moving forward because we have a lot to do. God bless you. Semper Fidelis.
God bless.